All right, and let me say this as well, because a lot of people are confused. When you see this right here, like this sunflower, like this is Neolithic. It didn't come Asiatic, because you see the Zulu, they wear things like this, right? The beaded headbands. It didn't become Asiatic until after the world started mixing. Then you see this right here, right? This is beaded work. This is Zulu and Neolithic. It's not Native American. So like when people say I'm FBA, my grandmother, she was Indian and Cherokee, like what are we saying? What are we saying? This is African. This is African. Cowhide, who herds cows? Neolithic tribes. This right here, beat it. The sunflower. This is Addis Ababa. Addis Ababa. Like, why are people? Okay, here we go. Great peace, great peace, great peace. Nice to meet you all this morning. We're going to talk about a couple things. And, I hope that people understand the importance of this conversation we're about to have and they take it seriously, because, we are in times right now where if we don't get together and exercise our right to vote, our right to invest, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. So I want to talk about this, Libya right now, they're in a block with the United States where, the United States is trying to freeze their investments. French forces just invaded Burkina Faso, and there's been jihadist groups, complaining about what's going on here in the United States. And some lives has been at jeopardy, so we need to talk about this. And the United States, they're closing embassies in other parts of the world. Africa, for example, Africa, for example. And, I need to say this. Black people are very xenophobic towards Africans, and I'm seeing it every day. It's not a clue who was lynching Negroes back then and Maroons. It's not a secret now. They want to blame white people, but exactly, it was people who were in the so-called black race. You know what I mean? Because we see where the demand of hate is coming from. We see where it's coming from. It's being exercised in all facets of society now, where you have embassies closing because you have these fringe groups who don't like Africans. They're attacking Africans on the street. Look at this. You see how this man looks? He looks just like people in my family, right? You know what I mean? He looks just like people in my family. We're related in some way. In some way, we're related. This right here is $100. I don't want to say dollar, but 100. I keep forgetting the name of this currency. I'll just say shilling for now. 100. 100 South Sudanese pound. And you say, like, you look at the fact that, you have black people who are living in America and, the ADOS group, the FBA group, ADOS, all these people, right? B1, I've been kicked off of panels, like locally, right? Because they found out that I had political aspirations alongside of those who come from West Africa, East Africa, Central Africa, South Africa, North Africa. They've kicked me off of panels because of that. So, like, if you have me, right, who's by all intents and purposes, right, the original American, right, because I still have my DNA molecular structures, my polymer, or you would say my genetic information. I still have it. You can see it right here. I still have it. So I'm like what you would call original American and original African. You see people who come to the black community through miscegenation or through consensual or, promiscuous relations with other groups, right? Arabs, white people, black and women, black men, and they end up in the black community and they're termed black people, but they don't necessarily look black. This man right here, president of South Sudan, a black man, right? But these groups wouldn't necessarily call him a black man. They would have a problem with that because they feel like he would have some superiority over them and he would be taking, who they are, their heritage. He would be taking that. But, I was just looking at CT, he was telling me about his family. And, you look at him and you say, like, I see why people say he comes from Liberia or he comes from Nigeria. But according to him, his family, doesn't necessarily come from those places. He's an American, right? But you see how he looks. He looks Liberian or something like that, right? And you wonder, like, okay, is his father Liberian or, because he said his mother was like, she's kind of Delta, So you wonder, like, okay, is that really the case? And you see how we're related to a person who is from the continent of Africa. I'm a pure African. He's a pure African. You see how we're related. And yet, like, people who come from, these places, like, who causing all this mayhem and madness, they don't share values with the fact that, it's people who are already in the black community who've been here longer than some of the other people who just came. They didn't mix into, white people. They didn't mix into Arabs. They stayed who they were. Up until the point maybe they have been doing other things that you would say would be like, I don't want to say that word, but, they may have been marrying into their sister's bloodline or, she may have been married into her brother's bloodline. What you see is this, like, everywhere you go, right, you see xenophobia towards Africans and you see xenophobia towards dark-skinned Americans. You see it. I think to say that you don't see it, I think that's being, like, very disingenuous. Just be honest about what you see. Like, if you walk down the street in America and you're dark skinned and you're wearing something that has like African pride, like a daishika or something, in some of these cities where you see the young boys and you see the young man driving in the cars, they'll stop him and they'll harass him. And I just say this after I see a comment pop up on my post of, a xenophobic comment, right? So you see this happening all the time. And I don't think the United States is doing enough to stop it. I'm not afraid for Africans because I think they can defend themselves. And I also know that Africans, when they see stuff kind of taking off to a degree, then they push that button that the other nations don't have. They put a stop to it very quickly. When you see all these African men from these countries start surrounding some of these officials here in the United States, then something is about to get, handled the right way. You can't be taking people's value systems away because you have a moment in time where you feel like, FBA, ADOS, or B1, it's the thing that you want to go with for now. A lot of these people, they're just here to kick up dust. They don't really agree with those terms because You see the people who say they're black, right? Or who say they're B1 or they're African or, who say that they're, black. They don't necessarily look like these people where, they don't look like me. So, when you look at this and you say, like, what is really causing all of this? Is it jealousy? Is it envy? Like, what is it? Like, what really is it? And you have black people who are going back to Africa and they're buying land, they're investing in the villages there, they're becoming accustomed with the people, they're making relationships with the people like I am, right? I have people in my contacts who are from Africa and, we talk every day about. So, like, all I have to say is this, in order to stop the United States from sabotaging African nations, get money. This is a note. This is really not money. This is a note. It could be, counterfeit. It could be, real, authentic. Just get it, right? It's a black face on the money. Just get it. There's no black faces on the money in the United States, and people who say they're black or B1, they keep handling that exchange of value, So, this is about something else deeper than doing the right thing. It's something else about that. And, this xenophobia thing is taking off. It's taking off. I was on my Next Door Neighbor app, and I was posting videos of like constructive things that were happening in Africa, like, Americans investing in Africa. Let me tell you about this guy right here who's African American. He's building things in Ghana. Let me tell you about Ibrahim Traore and how he's changing his government system around. Let me tell you about these organizations who are helping people in the United States and in Africa who are African women. The people kept flagging the posts that I was making. And I was like, let me get off this app because, like, I really don't want to know any of these people. You know what I mean? Because, like, when it comes to a point where you're just, like, extremely xenophobic, like, it's no hope for you. You know what I mean? Like, it's no hope for you. You can't cut off human civilization because you have a fix about how an American should look. If you light skin, you an Indian. My mother had long Indian hair. Like, it's beyond, it's crazy at this point, man. Like, it's crazy. So, like, the reason I make my videos, as you can see, we're 11 minutes in. I know they reach departmental offices. And I know they look at my videos, like important people. I know they do. Because I share my videos out, and it gets in the right hands, so, you know what I mean? Like, if you're not identifying as African at this point, then I don't really see the cause of what you're doing because they've been on their money. They've been championing climate action, climate change, climate industry. They've been doing it. They're the biggest importers and exporters of farming products. So it's like, what exactly are you trying to say, or what are you exactly trying to do? You know what I mean? Like, this is the reason why they haven't been bombed, because of their family here in America, us. Only countries you've been seeing getting bombed is like Arabian nations. And that even in itself is wrong. That even in itself is wrong. Like, no one should be getting bombed on this earth because they want to seek sovereignty or, idealistic national standards for, their progeny. So think about all of this stuff, man. It's getting out of hand. Great peace, Yakoki.